Hello, Hayes. Last year, I made a mistake a few weeks before getting engaged. I never thought I'd get married, but I met the perfect man. Kind, funny, smart, the whole works. My desire to spend our lives together clashed with my own problems. My fear of commitment, of being unlovable, of being abandoned. You get it. I ended up self-sabotaging and I slept with someone else. Someone who is not a part of my daily life, but is very much part of my extended friend group. He's the exact opposite of my partner, and I would never dream of anything deeper with him. I've kept it a secret ever since. I talked about it with my therapist back then, who said it was common, and that if it was indeed a fleeting thing, then I shouldn't overthink it. Unfortunately, not overthinking it is not part of who I am, and I cannot forgive myself. I cannot confess to my now fiance. I'm stuck with my own mistake, and I'm afraid my relationship is tainted forever by my own flaws. Is there a way to forgive myself? Is there a way to let this go and move on? I do think he's the one, but he doesn't deserve someone who cheated. I'm devastated. Yours, living with mistakes. I can imagine the pain you are feeling right now and the pain you are living with. And when you're sitting with like such great pain and guilt over a choice, when you're sitting with such great pain and you know that you sort of brought this onto yourself, it's really quite a suffocating feeling. And I am glad you wrote, and I'm sorry that you're sitting in that. So that's number one. I think your therapist gave you some really poor guidance. Like when I read that line about your therapist, I was so angry on your behalf. Not because it sounds like the therapist guided you to not tell your now fiance, husband. I'm not sure if you're married at this point. Not because she guided you to keep it a secret, but because it sounds like she guided you to like not think about this choice very deeply and what led you to this choice. And that I think is, I hope she's not I hope this person, I didn't mean to assign a gender to her. I hope your therapist to them. I hope your therapist is no longer your therapist. You said back then, so that makes me think maybe you got rid of them. Because I think there's nothing more dangerous to us as individuals and to the people we love than feelings of shame and self-hatred that go unexplored. I'll say that again. I think that there is nothing more dangerous than deep feelings of self-hatred and unworthiness and shame that go unexplored. Maybe some people are better, or like maybe some people maybe don't experience the scope of that shame and self-hatred and remorse or whatever their feelings are. Maybe some people don't experience that scope and therefore they don't act out on them. Or maybe some people are just naturally better at keeping those feelings at bay. But cheating is just one expression of those feelings. And I would bet, like, I don't say this to scare you or to scare anybody who has these feelings when they're unexplored, but like, sometimes cheating could be an isolated behavior, but I see it. Look, there's so many reasons. There's so many reasons people cheat. But in the case of this, it's like cheating is one expression of these feelings. And I bet there will be other expressions of these feelings if you try to push them down. If you keep shoving down these feelings of abandonment, your fear of abandonment, your fear of commitment, the fear that you are inherently unlovable, those, if you don't spend some time with those, really feel them, explore where they came from, look for ways to sit with those feelings before you act on them. Like, you'll do this again. Of course you will, because you're searching for something to distract you from that pain, or you're searching for something to take the pain away. Maybe you're searching for something to prove to yourself of why you are unlovable, why you are not cut out for commitment, right? The uncertainty of that, like that's kind of an interesting question. Your fear of commitment. If you have a story in your head about how you are not cut out for this, you're not cut out for long-term relationships, maybe the fear, like there's a lot of uncertainty in a marriage, in a long-term partnership. I feel that uncertainty too. Like it's sort of, it's a similar to feeling to like how if you think about how the world's going to explode at one point, or you think about how we are one, we're one planet in a solar system of billions of solar systems, and then there's billions of galaxies. I forget what the exact numbers are, even though Brian, my husband, is a space nerd and has told me this a million times. Sometimes when you think about the vastness of existence, it can be overwhelming and you sort of shut down. I think thinking about a marriage or a long-term partnership can be similarly like, or sorry, let me rewind. Sometimes thinking about how big the universe is can make the present moment almost feel meaningless, or like, what the fuck how am I supposed to make any decisions? Like, does any of this matter? Is this real? You can sort of get caught up in that void. I think sometimes when you think about a marriage or a long-term partnership, you can get caught up in a similar, well, how am I going to know what's going to happen in 20 years? And like, how could you like choose to get married now? I don't know what I'm going to be like. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty. You are taking a big bet. I do believe that in lots of ways. It's all a big bet. You're making an educated guess. I think if you have fears of commitment, if you have fears of commitment, that uncertainty of what the future holds might be even harder to sit with. And then maybe you go and you blow it all up just so that you have some fucking certainty, which is a delusional way to think about it. But as somebody who has self-sabotaged in the past, I wonder if that was a part of my thinking too. Like, might as well just make it fucking real. I'm sorry. Like, I am sorry that your pain drove you to make this decision that's causing you and the people you love more pain. That's really hard. And I do think it can be the ultimate form of like self-hatred to put yourself in that position. That you put yourself in a position to feel this way about yourself. Because you did do something really hurtful. You did something really hurtful, and you did something that doesn't stand for who you are and who you want to be. And God, I know that when I've made choices that I like don't feel good about, or that I don't feel represent the person that I am, when I've made choices out of fear or out of desperation, it takes a lot of effort to forgive yourself and to learn how to live with those feelings, with the results of those choices. But I can empathize, though I haven't been in this specific situation that you are in. I have been in other situations where I've made choices that like kind of left me feeling like, who am I? This is not who I thought I was. How did I get here? And I think a lot of the times how I got there was not asking for help sooner and trying to push feelings down. Push feelings down. I mean, that was the name of my game for a very long time. Push the feelings down, push the deepest fears down, and maybe they will go away. And I think that strategy can work for a long time. It worked for me for a very long time. I was like a high functioning fear pusher awayer. But then they don't work. And the way you've gotten through your life, pushing some of these feelings away, they're no longer working for you. They're actively destroying the things that matter to you. You have to focus on the root cause here. You have to focus on that. And I don't think you can do that alone. I think some of it can be done alone when you have a support system, but I don't know that it can be done alone. I think it needs to be done with friends, even though this therapist fucking sucks, it really makes me scared about that profession. Makes me so scared to think of how many people, like I think therapy has been such a great thing for me. But I maybe have been lucky with good therapists, and maybe I am bringing my own awareness to the table to be able to suss out what's good, what's bad. I don't know. It does scare me, though, that you had this experience and other experiences I hear of people with bad therapists. But I guess like anything, there's going to be good and bad of everything. I think that this can be discussed with like a professional, mainly because they can push you Like, this will be helpful to discuss with a professional because they can push you and they're not invested in the same way that, your husband is, or even sometimes a friend. Though I do think that it's important to have friends who can be both, who can hold you accountable and affirm your feelings. That's what I try to do. Those words come to mind when I think about Hello Hayes and what I want to do here. It's like toe the balance between affirmation and accountability, because that's what I need. And that is what's helped me with my feelings in my life, is that mix. And accountability, not to like hold you accountable for your behavior. I don't really mean that. There is a time and place for that, but I don't think that is here necessarily. It's like hold you accountable to what you know you can be, not what I think is right or wrong. We need friends who do that, who hold you accountable to your truest self. Like, they see you the way you on your best, like most confident days, like who you really are, who you really are. You need a friend like that too. But I don't think this is overthinking. I don't think asking yourself these questions and wanting to get to the bottom of why you did this and where these feelings come from, I don't think that's overthinking. Overthinking is such a bad rap, like that term, like being an overthinker. I guess I'm definitely an overthinker. I mean, fucking obviously. Come on, Hayes. Obviously, I'm an overthinker. And my overthinking tendencies have definitely are problematic for me sometimes. Definitely. But they're also what make me me. And they also are a beautiful thing. My overthinking is what allows me to be as compassionate as I am, and like as interested in feelings and able to show up and listen to people. And I can spot things, and it plays a role in how observant I am and creative. And this is me now just trying to take back pride of the term overthinker, because it's been so, I don't know, I've like begun to associate overthinking with like being like a weak little people pleaser. She's such an overthinker. She's not strong. She's weak. And maybe I'm projecting some of my own insecurities about it onto it, but I have those insecurities because of the way people talk about overthinkers on the internet. Come on. Come on. It's not overthinking to go deep here. And even if it was overthinking, it would be the worth it kind. It would be the worth it kind. I think the only way that you will begin to forgive yourself, and I do think you're right to think about forgiving yourself. Forgiveness is something we do for ourselves. I don't think you'll be able to forgive yourself until you understand what happened here more. Until you can articulate it and maybe like feel it more than what you've done here. My fear of commitment, of being unlovable, of being abandoned. Those, to me, those are honest, but they're kind of like surface level layers of honesty. And part of why I wanted to answer your letter, why I didn't just like write it off as like, oh, this person cheated, bad, is because I do think that you are displaying honesty here. Honesty is hard. Honesty is really hard. And I think that you are giving as much as you can right now. I think you're being as honest with yourself as you can right now. And these words that I just listed in your letter of what your fears are, they're kind of, I say they're basic level or surface level, not to dismiss the severity of them, but I think that I want you to get more specific. Specificity is really key, I found, for getting to a place where you trust that your feelings will like go away, or that your feelings aren't going to control your life. When you get specific about what you feel, and then maybe start to get specific about what are some times that I've felt that way, and then maybe get even more specific, diving into those memories. Having like a language, an encyclopedia that helps us understand why we are the way we are. I don't know. It's made me approach the feelings I have that make me feel so ashamed. It's made me approach them with like a little more compassion. And then when those feelings come and I'm faced with like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit with this feeling, or am I going to act out? Am I going to do something about it? I find that I'm able to sit with the feelings a little bit more because I trust they're going to go away. And really what that is, it's like having trust with yourself that you can survive the wave of that feeling of unworthiness, that this was going to pass. Um, It's going to pass. Where was I? I'm going to take a sip of coffee now. I'm looking at the letter now. I just want to get a few timeline things straight. You cheated on your boyfriend, essentially, and then you got engaged a few weeks later. I'm sure at the time you knew that you were going to be getting engaged soon. I'll make that guess. I feel like a lot of people know that they're about to get engaged, or even if they don't know the specific date, you know the engagement is in the air. So for all intents and purposes, you cheated on your fiance. I don't yet know if you are now married. You were engaged at the point of writing the letter, and I don't know what you decided to do. You wrote that you do think he's the one, but he doesn't deserve someone who cheated. It's such an interesting, I do also believe, as fucking sad as it is, I think that sometimes, he could be a perfect one for you. But if you are not yet ready to do the self-work needed to be a partner who doesn't cheat, then maybe you are not ready for marriage, And even I'm listening to myself saying that if you're not ready to do the work to be a partner who doesn't cheat, it's sort of like there's two trains of thought that I just had hearing myself say that. One of them is well, okay, it's the bare minimum. Obviously, you don't cheat on your partner. But second, it's is that just being a partner who doesn't cheat is no way to be in a marriage. That can't be the only standard. I want so much more for you, and I want so much more for me than just to be a strong person who doesn't cheat, right? Cheating is not a good thing to do. It's an expression. Cheating is not a good thing to do. But the work I do on myself is not just so that I don't cheat, right? I want you to have a marriage and a relationship that you feel joy in, that you feel safe and protected in, that you feel beautiful and sexy and free and has surprises, and you have trust that you can get through hard things. And I'm sure all of those feelings I've had I don't remember all those words I just listed, but I bet that even in the 5 years of marriage, 11 years of being together, that I've had moments where I didn't feel those things. But oftentimes the moments where I didn't feel things, they were really about me. And so it's not even that you need to feel these things all of the time, but I want more for you than just a marriage that you're strong enough not to cheat in. Hearing myself say that, we've labeled cheating as the worst possible thing you can do, and that you must do whatever is required of you to not cheat. And it's yes, but yes, and because I do think cheating is an expression of look, does it go without saying? I will say it just in case. There are some people who cheat just because they are some people who cheat will never even come close to thinking about the impact of their behavior on others. And that it's hard for me sometimes to even imagine that people like that exist, that are just so bad. I'm uncomfortable even calling people bad, because it kind of comes up against some of my beliefs about humanity and rehabilitation. And but some people, I read stories sometimes and I'm what the actual fuck? And then I find myself trying to understand. It's well, maybe they. Because the people that I surround myself with, and I've seen how quote, bad people can learn and be better. I don't know. I jump through hoops sometimes trying to make sense. But then the reality is there are some people who are just fucking rotten eggs. They're rotten eggs, and they do things that I couldn't even dream of doing. And I'm no perfect person. But there are some people who cheat. It's a long-winded way of saying some people who cheat, and they just will never, it's not even worth having a conversation with them. You should dump their ass, because they're never going to treat you right, and they're not going to treat anybody in their life right, and run far away. But then people can also cheat because they're needing to feel safe. They have some psychological need that's not being fulfilled in their relationship, and they feel they need to find it elsewhere. Are there things you can do other than cheat? Of course. But when people are desperate for a need to be filled, I understand what can happen when you don't have the proper support. That's actually an interesting thing, talking about like something I've had 3 therapists in my life, including the one now. I think I talked about this in my therapy episode many months ago about my experience with therapy and answering a bunch of your questions about therapy. You can go listen to it if that sounds interesting to you. Since I'm still in my 3rd therapist, I don't yet have this like grand takeaway, but I feel like with my first 2 therapists, I have kind of some like high level theme when I think back to our time together, like what's the major thing I learned? And with my college therapist, I feel like the major thing I learned that carried me through my 20s when I was not in therapy was not all feelings require an action. Just sit with the feeling and do nothing. And that lesson came to me because up until then, for most of my teens and my like, let's call it it was really in my teens. I kind of got it together when I turned 2021. I was going to therapy like 4 times a week, so that helped me get it together. This was a very hard lesson for me to learn. I would have really intense feelings, and then I would act out on them. It was like I couldn't just sit with the pain or sadness I was feeling. I needed to like make them physical. And over the course of my middle school, high school, early college years, that manifested in a ton of really dangerous behaviors. I did some self-harm in high school. I developed an eating disorder in college. I would cut class. The first time I cut class, I was in like 6th or 7th grade. I would oversleep. I would stop taking my medication. And I list those things off. I know those are all severe things, so I hope that didn't just feel like, whoa, mic drop. But they don't actually seem that, they don't seem that like big deal to me anymore because I see those behaviors as like behaviors. They were the big deal to me were the feelings that I felt I couldn't sit with, that I needed to do something about them to either like make them matter. And that's the feelings are what I continue to take seriously because they're feelings I still sit with. Those feelings will always be a part of me. But he taught me how to identify them and then how to like do nothing when I feel them. And God, doing nothing is often really harder than doing all of those things I listed, which are all sad things. They're like, again, they're expressions of the behavior. And sometimes they are so serious that they become the primary problem themselves, like the distracting problem, which I think is like a therapy term, like a clinical term. Those problems become the distracting problem, and then we have to deal with those. But then the feeling is always going to fucking be there. And if you don't deal with the feeling, and if you never learn how to sit with it, I think you're setting yourself up for just a cycle of making choices that make you hate yourself more. And that is not what I wish for you. It's not what I wish for any of us. It's not what I wish for any of us. Maybe what I'll end with is that I want you to know that like, you are lost right now, but you will not be lost forever. And you will come back if you put in the work to change. You will become a version of yourself, the version of yourself that you are proud of and that you recognize. You are not so far lost that you will never be able to come home again, come home to yourself. I just want you to know that. It feels really important to know that. Okay, thank you so much for writing. If you have an update, I would love to hear it. Let me know what choices you've made, if you went on with the wedding and what happened, or wherever you wound up. I would love to hear. If anyone listening wants to send a letter, it's hellohayesbusiness@gmail.com. Send me the letter, send me your feelings. Let's talk about it together. Thank you all so much for listening. And now let's go to our next part. Just picking a little piece of lint off of my sweater, which was a recent kind of fun purchase. Something you might not know about me is that I love antique shopping and I love vintage shopping and thrifting. I love buying secondhand. I started buying secondhand probably in like my early 20s, and I probably adopted my love of antiques from my grandma. Like her interior style was very antique driven. The thrifting not so much, but we eventually began to love it together. It's a hobby. It's a hobby I love. I've tried to cut back significantly on my shopping consumption in the last 10 years. I stopped shopping fast fashion at some point in my 20s, both because of its environmental impact, but I also just really wanted to spend less. I was really tired of that feeling of like going to Zara and buying a million things and then having them fall apart and never wearing them. I love personal style. I love having a closet that feels really, it's important to me that I dress and the things I put on my body really feel like me. And I felt like the greatest chance of building a wardrobe that feels that way, that feels special and individual and purposeful, was to shop slower. And in order to shop slower, for me, it meant like not walking into stores like Zara and H&M. I mean, I literally don't walk into those stores. It's almost like, I mean, I don't walk in. I can control myself if I'm in there, but I'm like, why even go in if I'm not going to shop? So instead, I buy secondhand. I love shopping on the RealReal and eBay. And then I buy in person at secondhand consignment stores. And this sweater, this part of it is also that I love the find. Like shopping becomes when you can attach a memory to something that you own, it just becomes a little bit more meaningful, I feel. And it makes me feel, I don't know, it makes me feel prouder of the things I own that I found it. It feels a little bit like it was meant to be, which might be a delusional way of making myself feel better about purchasing things still. But that is how I tend to shop. And this sweater is a Stella McCartney silk cashmere sweater, okay? Stella McCartney silk cashmere. I've also become very picky about my materials. I never even thought about material until the last several years. I mean, to think that I would spend on like a designer dress, like I'd buy something on Shopbop maybe for $300, that is 100% polyester. No, I'm shocked now. Once you start to pay attention to material, also, it's really hard to look back. Like, there's this brand called Kallmeyer, Kallmeyer, in New York, and the brand is gorgeous. And I'd been looking for like one nice black tie dress in the color black that I can kind of wear on repeat to some events. And I had been looking at this brand. I had heard about her new line. It's a small line, small business. I want to support small businesses. But I was looking at the pieces, and so many of them are made out of fucking polyester. And it's like $800 dress for polyester. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. And I can't believe how much money I've probably spent on just like really shitty, cheap materials just for the brand name. I don't shop that way anymore. Anyway, I say this is silk and cashmere because I ended up getting this sweater for $30. $30. Now, I don't know if you can see in the video here. It doesn't fit me perfectly, but that doesn't bother me. I like my clothes oversized. It is covered in little holes. So this sweater probably was attacked by a moth. There are little holes everywhere, but you know what? I actually love that about this sweater. Reason being, it makes the wearing of it feel a little bit more casual and I'm less precious. Sometimes with a nice sweater or any new nice, it's almost like when you get a new phone. You don't want to drop it and then you drop it the first time and you're like, oh, thank God it's been dropped once. Now I can live a little bit more free. I don't have to be so consumed by worry that the phone's going to fly out of my hand, which happens to me all of the time. The holes make it feel lived in, and I appreciate that like somebody else has lived in this sweater. That doesn't freak me out. I know it freaks some people out. Once I bought a pair of denim shorts. They are too small on me now, sadly. I loved those shorts. And like 6 months maybe into wearing them, I hadn't washed them. Or maybe I had washed them. I put my hands into the front pocket and I pulled out. There was like a little photo of a girl, like a elementary school age child, but the photo clearly was from like many decades ago. You know how you can kind of tell. And it just like made me laugh. I loved that there was this photo of a child in the jean shorts. It was like proof of life that these jeans had a life before me and now that they are mine. I feel that way about the holes in this sweater. And And it's my first time wearing it, actually. I didn't wash this since I purchased it, which maybe is a little bit gross, but I need to dry clean it or I need to hand wash it. And it smells a little musty, but like nothing that I can't get over. And I'm happy to be wearing it, and I'm happy that I have it. The holes kind of feel very me. Anyway, moving on. Last week when I shared some nonfiction book recommendations, I got a few requests to share some fiction book recommendations. And these are just some books that I've read recently. I haven't yet gone through like my entire arsenal of books that I've read, and here are my top recommendations. But there are a few novels that I've read recently that I really, really loved and kind of tore through. One is Daisy Jones and the Six, which is a very popular book. I'm sure many of you have heard of it and read it or seen the show. I have not seen the show. I wanted to read the book first, and TBD if I'll watch the show. Like the book was so fulfilling for me as a read. I absolutely loved this book. I stayed up, like this book for me was reading on my Kindle with the covers over my head while Brian was asleep, like needing to finish it. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid is just such a like propulsive writer, but who also has such emotional depth. I like books that are easy to read, but like kind of astonishing to read too. I don't mind working hard on a book. I've read plenty of really challenging books and I will do that. But my favorite type of reading experience is when it just like, Liz Gilbert has a great way of saying this when she talks about her writing, that when she's writing, she wants no reader left behind. And I feel that with Taylor Jenkins Reid. Like I really feel that she's thinking so much about keeping every reader with her every step of the way. And that is really hard to do. And to do that well and to still lead to such like rich emotional insight is just like top of the craft to me. And I love her books. And I couldn't believe that I hadn't read Daisy Jones. This book is written in such a unique format. This doesn't give anything away, so I'll tell you because maybe I was surprised. I was not expecting this when I picked it up. The book is written as an interview. So every chapter, Daisy Jones and the Six was this band in the 70s, and a journalist in present day is hosting interviews to write a piece about what happened to the band, how the band eventually fell apart. We know that right away when the book starts. So each chapter is told from the perspective of one of the bandmates telling the story to the interviewer. And you don't see the interviewer throughout. But the book doesn't read as if it's an interview, but it's this like really compelling twist on storytelling. And the way that Taylor keeps track of everything and has made such a complicated narrative structure feel so effortless. I'm so impressed. I'm so in awe. And I think Taylor Jenkins Reid does this in all of her books. All of her books have a really interesting structure and format. She's known for that. I adored this book. I absolutely fucking loved it. I loved the ending. I loved the characters. I felt so moved. I learned a lot. We have themes of love and addiction. There's a lot of love and addiction. Friendship. If you haven't read it, must read. It's a must read for me. And I love all of her books. Evelyn Hugo, Malibu Rising. I think those are actually the only I love all of her books. I've read 3 of them. Love them all. So that was one. The other book was called Hot Air Balloon by Marcy Dermansky. Was that right? Let me confirm that. Marcy Dermansky. Hot Air. Yeah. It's actually just called Hot Air, not Hot Air Balloon. Okay. The second novel I read recently was called Hot Air by Marcy Dermansky. And this is the second Marcy Dermansky book I read. The first one was called Very Nice. And I actually think I liked that one a little bit more. I learned about Marcy Dermansky from Roxane Gay's Goodreads account. I love Roxane Gay, and I have learned about a lot of books through reading her public Goodreads. I love reading her reviews. She writes really like razor sharp short ones on there. Marcy Dermansky's writing style is not like Taylor Jenkins Reid, but it sort of is similar in the sense that the prose is very easy to understand, but oh my God, it's smart. Marcy writes about terrible people. Like that's one similarity between her two novels. She writes about pretty terrible people doing pretty terrible things, but it is fucking entertaining. Hot Air, the premise is there's a couple on a date in their backyard. They're actually not a couple. They're having a first date in his backyard and there's a pool. And all of a sudden, a billionaire and his wife crash a hot air balloon in the backyard during the date. And it is about what happens over a short span of time after they meet. Very entertaining. I read that book very fast as well. Really enjoyed it. I would read Very Nice before Hot Air. Very Nice. It's been a while since I read it, so this was going to be a very loose, top level summary. Student is in love with her teacher. Professor is into the student's mother. Again, terrible people, highly entertaining. What else have I read recently? And then the other book that I had read recently is Liz Gilbert's new memoir, All the Way to the River. This book, my God, the discourse around this book. If you're at all in like writer discourse, Liz Gilbert discourse, then you've definitely seen some of this. I love Liz Gilbert. I can't really say I love her as a person because I don't know her as a person, but I feel like I know enough about her through reading her Substack and reading all of her books and listening to her speak that I kind of know her as a person, and I really like her. I admire her. I really admire her as a writer, and I admire the honesty that I think she brings to her work. And again, as we were talking about earlier in the episode, I think honesty changes throughout a person's life and how ready you are to confront certain truths. This book is about addiction. It is about her relationship with her lover and friend, Raya, who has now died. It is a complicated fucking book, and it is an imperfect book. And I'm not sure. I'm not like, it's sort of a book that I can't tell if it decides to have like a full on this podcast that I have, like a full deep dive. I don't know if I want to do that. I really enjoyed this book. I learned a lot about addiction in reading this book. I felt it was a very brave book. I thought it was a very sad book. And it's not a book that made me want to be Liz Gilbert, which I think a lot of people read her books wanting to be her. This book portrayed her as the deeply flawed person that she is. And I think that was very brave. It's not my favorite of her books, but I enjoyed it all the same. There are parts of it. My friend Stephanie and I had a really great conversation about it. And she's one of the people who I can have kind of complicated conversations around writers like Liz and books like this when they're dominating the public, dominating kind of it's not really like, it is the public. It's a very niche group of people probably who are discussing Liz Gilbert's memoir and like the problems with it and whether it's good or not. And I don't know, but I had a great conversation with her where we could kind of reflect on it, both as two writers talking about the craft, but also as two people, and explore where our judgments of Liz were coming through. I really liked it. I would recommend it if you like memoir. I mean, I think some people criticize one of the criticisms of Liz is like that she is a narcissist and that she just like any experience she has in her life, she'll then take it to an extreme just for the writing of the story. And I just don't, I like reject that. I reject that narrative completely. I think people who say that, one, don't love writers, and also probably just dislike women's memoir as a genre. I don't believe that Liz goes through life being like, oh, you have a problem? I'm going to attach myself to you so that I can write a best-selling book. I don't think that that's how she thinks. I think she has plenty of flawed. I think she's got plenty of flawed. She's deeply flawed and has other many fucked up lines of thinking. But I don't think that that's one of them. And I was sort of, as I see that discourse of like, this woman will do anything for the story, I think that's incredibly misogynistic. And I think the people who are saying that are being misogynistic. And they might just not like women's memoir and the telling of women's stories. But I love women's memoir and I love reading about what happens to real people. And how they're making sense of their lives and what they're learning and what they did wrong. That's why memoir is one of my favorite genres to read. I'd recommend it. Okay. I think that might be it for today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. If there are topics that you'd like to hear me discuss in Hello Hayes letters or in the second part of the pod, please let me know. On the YouTube comments, you can send me an email at hellohayesbusiness@gmail.com. Any thoughts you have on how the show's evolving, what you want to hear, I would really love to hear them. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. If you know anybody who might like the show, feel free to send it to them. We've got new episodes every Tuesday. And with that, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.